If you've ever seen a vampire movie or celebrated Halloween, you'll know what these little creatures are. They're bats. Most people think of them as Dracula or maybe just a pest in your attic. But what really is a bat? The Oxford Dictionary defines a bat as a mainly nocturnal mammal capable of sustained flight, with membranous wings that extend between the fingers and limbs. And there's so much more than that. Not only are they special,
they have accomplished this feat that no other group of mammals has. They're the only mammals that fly.
Some are helpful pollinators.
There are bats that occur in the southwest that eat pollen and nectar.
Most are nature's pest control.
All of the bats in North Carolina eat insects. Most of the bats in the U.S. do.
Insects galore. Gourmet of bug.
Bats eat a lot of flying insects, so they would eat things like moths, mosquitoes.
Anything goes with bats when it comes to bugs, and mostly our bats are all insect eaters, so that's just exactly what they're after, is every bug in the world.
And some eat other things besides that.
Some eat fish. They're known to eat mice or small birds. And of course there's the few vampire bats that will drink blood.
But in any form, bats are an important part of our ecosystem and are truly amazing. So when people think of bats, why are they so often scared?
People are afraid of bats because they believe probably what things they see on TV.
But that's a Hollywood bat. This is a real bat. A fuzzy, helpful, bug-eating ball of fur. Yet 1 out of 5 people still dislike bats. Why?
People's ideals have changed people's minds about what bats do for human beings, and the fear factor comes that they're on an alternating time frame. They're on an evening all-night thing, and we're asleep, and we've all got these images in our heads of the boogeyman, and bats sort of move into that. And Halloween has worked into that cycle as well. It's that nuance of not knowing enough about bats that scares us.
There's a lot of mythology about bats that has fed into that kind of fear. But it's too bad. It's unwarranted because they're actually pretty harmless.
Bats are wonderful creatures with lives and families just like us. Mother bats can tell their babies from thousands just by their voice and smell. They clean their children's faces and cuddle them as they nurse. Even once a bat is old enough to leave their mothers, they return year after year to hibernate with their families. But a bat only gives birth to 1 or 2 babies a year, making them incredibly vulnerable to extinction.
White nose syndrome has been described as the worst ecological disaster of its kind. It is named for a white fungal growth that grows primarily on the muzzles, on the noses, and also on other unfurred parts of bats during hibernation.
It's very possibly going to wipe out all bat populations if we're not going to work hard enough to figure out what it passes along from every bat. How are we going to stop the cycle so that we can save our bats?
It only attacks bats and only during hibernation. The spores can remain viable outside of hibernation. They can remain viable on the floor of the cave and possibly on the bats as they exit the cave, and then can be transferred elsewhere.
White nose syndrome is a big problem, and without human help, the bats will keep dying. But thankfully, there are so many ways that you can help right in your community.
If you see a bat, don't touch it, leave it alone. And you can also build bat houses, keep them out of your house, give them somewhere to live.
There are specific ways that bat houses need to be constructed and installed in order for them to be suitable for bat habitation. The best information on bat house design and installation can be found on the website for Bat Conservation International, and that web address is batcon.org. There's really good information on how to build a bat house if someone is handy and has access to tools and the supplies to do it themselves. They can easily do it. They're pretty inexpensive to make. But it is important that they use the right kind of wood, and that they're painted the right color, and that they're the right dimensions, and most importantly that they're installed correctly. They need to be high up off the ground. They need to be on the side of a building or a pole, not a tree, because a bat house placed on a tree and too low to the ground just makes bats easy targets for predators.
Probably the most important thing we can do for bats is education, telling everyone about bats so that they learn the difference between fact and myth, so that they can know that all the things they think they might know about bats is not necessarily true.
Make sure that they don't use pesticides killing off all the bugs and insects, because that goes into the cycle. Create a healthy habitat for the bats to maintain and stay in your area. live a good life, but live without killing off all the bugs in your yard. And encourage your neighbors to. Talk to people about it. And I think there's all kinds of things that you can get your kids involved and present them with how possible bats are in our environment and how good they can be for our environment.
If you're not a fan of bats, you may not be convinced yet, but there are so many different ways that bats help us that you might not even know about.
They have an important ecological and economic role.
We know that bugs will always be on this world as far as we know. We even know roaches will be around after we're long gone. So the millions of bugs that are produced every year, the bat population needs to keep up with that. If not, we're going to be swatting at everything for, we won't be able to go outside. So let's hope that bats will continue to thrive through every possible problem that they're going to come up against.
A few years ago now, about 3 years ago, a study was published on the economic impact of bats to the economy in North America. And the study showed that annually, bats consuming insects, simply doing what they do every night, contributed $22 billion to our economy by eating agricultural pests. And this includes pests of crop fields as well as forest pests. And so them eating insects every night means fewer pesticides are needed and used, which just has this sort of trickle-down effect, a positive effect on the ecology in the areas where bats are foraging.
Bats do so much for us. In return, we should help them. Many people, like the women in this video, already do. They help bats because they love them, and maybe this convinces you to as well.
Personally, I love bats. They're very interesting creatures. They're only flying mammal, and I love to have them around because, like I've said, they help control the insect population, which I am a big fan of because mosquitoes, for some reason, love to eat me, so I like something that eats them.
Well, I like bats a lot. They're fun. They're fun to study. They're beautiful and just so intricate and delicate when you get to hold them and see them up close.
I love bats. They're one of my favorite mammals. I learned about bats when I was about 23 years old. I was less than that. I was 18 years old. And the bat got into the room, and I reacted just like everybody else does, screaming and yelling, little girls, ah! And happened to have a friend of mine who was working as a naturalist, and she was there. She trapped the bat, and she showed us the bat up close, and the first time I ever got to see a bat, and realized that they're adorable, and they're so cute, and they became instantly, at that point, one of my best things as a mammal, my favorite mammals.